Hey everybody, welcome back to Alum House Sound. I'm Dave, and today we're going to talk about the most important thing you can focus on when you're setting down to mix anything. Mix in a DAW, mix on a console, front of house, monitoring, whatever it is that you're mixing. Today we're going to talk about the most important thing that you can focus on as you get started. Let's go. So by now you might have read the description or even seen in the name of this video, the most important thing that you can focus on when you sit down to work on a mix. And that's gain structure. You hear a lot about it. We always talk about gain structure. It's the first thing in the chain. In the consoles behind me, it's the top left knob. And it's the most important thing that you can work on. And the reason being is without proper gain structure, nothing else downstream is going to have a good opportunity to work properly. Gain structure is not a volume knob. It's not a knob that you twist and you crank the volume up or down. You have faders for that. The faders are the sliders that you can physically move up and down in a DAW or on a console, on a physical surface. Those are your volume adjustments. But the gain is an input compensation. So as an input compensation, what exactly are you compensating for? That's the question. So some inputs come in really loud, some inputs come in really soft, and what we need to do is we need to kind of normalize those across all of your inputs. We don't want one being really loud, one being really soft, and then you're having to crank up the faders or adjust the faders just to get a mix going. We want to pick a level that's consistent for all of our inputs, all the way across the board. When I'm commonly running on this X32 that's behind me, my go-to gain level is minus 12 dB on the meter. That gets me at a point where the preamp is working, the preamp is really contributing to what my source is doing. And it gives me an opportunity when I get all of my inputs across the board at minus 12, then I can start to bring my faders up and start to build a mix with all of those inputs. So whether that's drums, whether that's vocals, guitars, instruments, whatever the case is, I'm trying to get all of my inputs to minus 12 on the meters. Now, there are always great discussions around minus 18 dbfs. And that's a great thing to use if you're mixing in the box in a DAW. Then maybe minus 18 is what you're looking for. But pick one level as long as it's consistent across all of your inputs. Pick one level and then get all of your gain structures set so that your input level is hitting that mark consistently. Once you've got that in place, then you can start to run low-cut filters, EQing, compression, all of those things. And what you'll notice is that your tools, your channel strip, will respond much better when you've got good gain structure going on. If you've ever tried to run a compressor on a vocal and your input gain is way down and you've got to squash your compressor all the way down visually into the thing, and then you're barely hitting the compressor, you're not giving the compressor enough input gain to actually function well. And while your compressor may have an input gain knob on it, you want to back up at the top of the chain and make sure that you start at the beginning and get that gain set right before it even gets to the compressor. Here's an example of something else that we see a lot of times. I was just playing guitar at a church this past weekend, and my drummer said, I need more guitar in my monitor, but I've got him turned all the way up. So that's a downstream impact to improper gain structure. We took an opportunity to talk about that because I was there on stage. But what happens is they set the gain only to what was needed in the room. Their fader was already up at unity on their mix, and they just set the gain to what they needed to hear in the room. And what happened is there was not enough gain going downstream for that drummer to get enough guitar in their monitor. He had it cranked all the way up, But what we need to do is go back to the top, turn that fader down and turn the gain up, get that gain right. Then go to the compressor, make sure that your compression is working properly. Then we can use that fader to build a mix in the house, and all of the other downstream opportunities like monitors or your live stream have a great signal to work with. Now, some of the other impacts similar to a mix bus that's sending to an in-ear monitor or a monitor mix, the other thing that we run into is effects. Your effects buses are going to have some challenges if you don't have proper gain on the input before it gets to that mix bus. So make sure that the gain is set properly. You then have full functionality of your fader level. You don't have to crank it all the way up or keep it all the way down. You've actually got that full range of adjustability on your fader that you can utilize to build a proper mix. Now, this gets in later on to what we talk about with mixing at unity. A lot of people like to keep their faders at unity, and we do what's called subtractive mixing, where instead of bumping things way up high, up to plus 10 dB on the fader, and working that algorithm in that fader to the max, we want to work on, if you don't hear something, let's turn other things down. It's a different way. We call it subtractive mixing, but that's the more common way to mix, and that's why there's so much more distance below unity than there is above unity. We want to make sure that we are working that subtractive mixing, and you've got a lot more room to play with in going negative than if you're going positive. When you go to that positive, it's going to jump really quick, really fast. Now, when we think about an analog board, I don't have one with me in my hands, but the top knob on any row on an analog console is the gain. That shows you the importance of that feature and that tool. And that is, again, the most important thing you can get. Now, on an analog console, you've got to use maybe the AFL, PFL button to look on the meter and pre-fader level, look on the meter, and then set your gain so that you're getting to the proper location. Again, you want to pick one level to work with and get all of your inputs there. So that's another thing to talk about is headroom. If your PA is not set up properly, then you're going to have to maybe run that main fader way down. So here's the scenario. You've invested $10, $20, $50, maybe $150,000 or more on an install. The install company comes out and they set up all your gear, your speakers, your subwoofers, all of the cabling, all of the everything. They've done all this work for you. And what they normally do is take the amplifiers and crank them all the way up. Not quite to 11, but maybe to 10. And they crank them all the way up because the last thing that they want to get a call for is, I've spent all this money and now my room is not loud enough. So they crank them all the way up. Well, what does that mean? Those speakers, as soon as they get any volume, are going to be really loud and really in your face. So then we get to the console, and the console now we've done some research, and we set our master fader at unity, maybe even -5, somewhere around there. But we set it at a good point. And then we work backward from that. Now we bring our input faders up to unity, because that's where we've been taught they need to start from. And then finally, we're doing our sound check, and our gain is maybe set improperly because everything else is jacked all the way up, and we've got to turn our gain down. So if that's your case, if you have all of your stuff set right, but you don't have enough gain coming in, and when you do set the gain properly now, -18, -15, -12, whatever your level is, you set that properly, and now, oh my gosh, my PA is way too loud. What do we need to do? The first thing I do is take that master fader and turn it down. Turn it down to -20. Who cares what you turn it to? Just turn the thing down so that you can get the console to work well. And then we can use our master fader to manage our room volume. But in an ideal scenario, we're going to set the input gain right. We're going to set our input fader towards unity, set our master fader towards maybe unity or -5. I prefer -5. And then we're going to set the amps and our PA to an appropriate level for our room. Then we know that as we build all of our mixes, we've got a great PA set up, the board gets to run efficiently, and usually that means turning your amps down. That doesn't mean that you've overbought in your amplifier scenario, hopefully, but what that means is that your amps are going to run really efficient and you're going to keep the total harmonic distortion, nerd alert, you're going to keep your THD down because your amps are running much more efficient. That means your system is going to not clip, your system's going to be really smooth, you're going to have a good frequency response, and your PA will last for a long time. All right, so to recap, we're coming into the most important thing. That again is gain structure. Gain structure, gain structure, gain structure. Get that set right. Pick a level, get your gain set on all of your inputs across the board to whatever that number is that you pick, and that way your console will run really well. All of your effects will run really well. Your monitors will mix really well, and your live stream, all of those things that come after your gain will be able to run really efficiently and smoothly. Well, I hope you found this video helpful. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up on this video. Make sure to share it and hit the subscribe button if you're looking for more content about mixing in general. A lot of my videos are about the X32 and M32 series, but we cover topics that are going to be utilized across any platform that you may come across. Well, thanks so much. If you've got questions, go ahead and leave those down in the comment section below. I'm always answering questions. If you're looking for some of the tools or materials that I use in a lot of my installs or in my studio, you can find those at the link below in my Amazon shop. And if you want to start a conversation outside of YouTube, maybe you need some individual help, feel free to check in the description as well. I've got a link to the Connect card on my website, and we can start a conversation outside of YouTube and get you some help. Well, thanks so much. We'll catch you in the next video. Peace.